Hi there, I'm Das Smith, and today I'm recording a video on my remote viewing for target 93559796, and this was for Tasker Dimmy for the Hellfire group. And as you can see here, it turned out to be the Philip experiment. So let's get to my data, shall we? Bear with me a sec while we get to the data here. Okay, so my initial ideogram here showed it was showing me some stuff which I felt was complex, structured and small. And I felt like I was inside something at this stage. So I was looking at a target that was very small and micro. That's how I started off. I had visuals of like circuitry, but then I said, no, it's not circuitry, but it feels like it's more different than this, but it's layered, more complex, and it felt quantum. It felt like I was looking down into quantum kind of like code or information, and I had the AOL here of quantum entanglement. I was getting visuals of layered symbols and pathways moving. It felt like code moving through these pathways. A soup of information, as you would say. This was very small or micro, but it was also everywhere. And I kept seeing colors purple and black with this, and it was all layered. So it felt like a structure to something, an answer, and it felt very advanced like technology, but it also felt organic here. And I had an AOL here of universal building blocks. Another radiogram here showed me that there was a life involved, a life who was male, but this male was non-physical. And it felt like they were almost like a psychic guide or a presence. And they had a feel like they were a director or an overseer, like a magician kind of manipulating time and energy. And I wrote here manipulating time. And it felt like they were like a being, a non-physical being, almost godlike. So another interesting ideogram here showed me space, which was vast and universal, code dark and expanding, and it was like a void. And there was also travel over vast distances. I had a look a bit more detail here, and another kind of like almost like a universe type thing here with lots of stars, complex. So sense here of a super dense area with hot energies, a mix of organic and basic compounds. Very rich in things, very like periodic table type stuff. So lots of elements, very rainbow-like and colourful, and it felt like it was on like the origin of something. And I wrote here at the top here, it felt like Orion or something like that. So it had clouds of moving matter, which were super dense. They were like magnetic, energetic. And everything felt so big, but yet so small as well. So this target had huge, vast elements, but very small micro. So it was like the macro and the micro in this target. Another interesting ideogram here showing me movement, and it felt like life and energy, which was moving and expanding. A feeling of eons, a vast amount of time in spaces, and it feels almost like the spread of life or something through the universe. An interesting ideogram here. I felt highly relevant to the target. All the ones I feel highly relevant were marked in yellow here. So it felt like there was this huge, big expanse of energy moving downwards here, moving downwards to my little picture of a stick figure here, which is a life form. So it felt like information as energy was transferred down to Earth and then shared as knowledge to a life form. It felt like I'm looking at the big picture here, universal type of thing. Felt very huge, very old, and it moved across time and space. But it also felt organic. It felt very esoteric, but also quantum in feeling, and also felt like there was like almost like a quantum esoteric kind of technology. It had a purpose, which was dissemination, and it felt planned or it was acted out here. And it feels like it had a higher purpose to all this. It was part of a grander plan. And I had the word downloads here, and it felt like information was energy, and it was being transferred direct to brain of people, and then it was filtered through the brain. And this gave me the AOL here of abductees, kind of a, alien abductee kind of plan. So it had a plan here, and this was to integrate, to change, but this was met with some opposition. So it felt like there was almost like a two or more sided conflict here, almost like the conflict of dark or light, good or bad kind of feel. But this felt almost cosmic and angelic elements to this. So why does all this all feel non-physical? I asked the question here, and I had this ideogram here. And I had an AOL here of quantum tunneling. It felt like there was like almost like this string-like quantum kind of micro kind of like wormhole tunnel thing going on, and these vibrating strings here that were vibrating with waves. So I wrote here, I feel like I'm missing something here, like this is a very complex answer to a very different question. Something real, it's not an event, but this is the answer, not the event itself. And it feels like I bypassed the event and I'd gone direct to the answer and solution. And then I asked for some direction here for a retasking. I got retasked here to go back inside to get more data. I had this ideogram here, which was energy as information, but this was consciousness. And this was accessing the matrix across time and space, and it was transferring information. Here with this ideogram here, you can see this kind of downwards motion there to a life form. So it felt like there was a powerful spark of inspiration which was being given to a life form, and this was telepathic. I had a sense of a mind-to-mind interaction, a sharing or a symbiosis type scenario going on here between two life forms. So there was this inspiration or a nudge or a gentle touch being given to this life form from above to give them inspiration. And this would be telepathic in nature. So this feels very esoteric, universal communication. It feels like an interaction of both a physical and non-physical level. There are two minds locked in communication, one being physical and one being non-physical. There's definitely a subconscious subtle feel to this. So at this point I decided to follow the information back to the source. And it moved backwards, and it felt like I was moving backwards through a cold dark expanse above Earth. It started off being moon based. It felt like I was I was being transferred to the moon. So it felt like this non-physical that was interacting was first on the moon there. And then I had a feeling then that way before it was on the moon location right now, but way before that, the previous location was Mars, and then way before that, it felt like the previous location was near the sun, and then way before that, I had a feeling of pillars. I don't know what that means. Maybe there's a place in the universe somewhere called pillars. I don't know. So it feels like they had moved in a progression from far into the distance, more towards Earth, where it was interacting now, this non-physical. So I moved to the moon time to describe what it was doing there, because that was the closest to it right now. There was a code, and it felt underground. It felt like there was safety underground, almost like caverns and hollows that had been excised. And then I had a flash image of a laser drill kind of melted circular tunnels. So lots of hollow spaces that were very old. And then on the surface, I had this feeling of this spider web-like construction. And it radiated out from a core here. This was above and also subsurface as well. And it was lit up in the darkness like a city. So I tried to draw this in more detail. And here's my moon image here with this kind of like city type thing in the shadow or in the dark side of the moon. So this was on the face of the moon that we don't get to see. And again, this shape felt very kind of organic, but also very linear, with tubular parts coming off it, with all these little lights that you could see in the darkness as well. So this shape was there, it was very large, but it also goes below ground and it is lit up in the dark, I put. Feels operational, like a hub or a forward operating base. It's very old, occupied, and people are working there. It's almost like signals intelligence kind of thing, that they're looking at what we're doing on Earth and they're analysing it. Felt very scientific, like a lab with lots of data gathering, lots of science and medical feel here, and it also felt very feminine. So I moved to any life that I could feel there and tried to describe those. And I had these tall, thin, soft skin, sleek face individuals. Their faces felt long and thin, very pale, and they always felt ornate. They had an ornateness to them. The facial structure had an African feel to it, but they moved very gracefully. The gravity was different, and they had very skinny arms and legs, thinner than us. They were taller than us, and they had this scientist feel here, very mission-based about them. Also, time felt irrelevant with them, and they felt like they wore these silver skins, like silver wetsuits, but way thinner, and the thickness of them was only a few molecules in thickness. and the skin itself felt alive, like it conducted, or it had a symbiotic kind of relationship with the life inside. So it felt like the skin itself was like a living machine, like a living AI kind of spacesuit. And I had here AOL spacesuit. So then I moved back to the page 3 data, and I tried to describe the non-physical male. And it felt like he was large, all-encompassing, and he was made of energy, which we would call the source. He felt like an overseer. So I asked what here. I tried to work out what this was. And it was all about the balance. And it felt like he was like a judge or an enforcer, but he's not physical. And he's there to kind of make sure that everything's fair, which is a bit weird. It felt like he was almost like a policeman, kind of like watching over a situation. I felt like he had no physical form, or I actually sensed that he had no physical form, but he could take any form that he wanted to. In reality, it was just energy, pure essence, and this came from him himself. That was his words that said that. I had all these colours like light, blue, white, effervescent light that was kind of radiating from this energy. Felt like he was overseeing many levels of interaction with humans and souls on Earth. And he felt like he was like a policeman here, an overseer. And then I lost the connection at this point. It just stopped at this point. I think I may have been asked to go back in again. Yeah, so I had a retask 2. My retask 2 on here. I started off with energy, which was entanglement. There was no time, no distance, and I kept seeing this kind of like strange wormhole kind of tunnel, and I felt like this was a connection or a pathway between two different life forms. It felt like it was geometric, crystalline in form. It dealt with energies, but it was holographic, and it was resonating and had a resonance and a hum to it. This feels like there was a device that can help or enhance the process, almost like a telepathic kind of psychic amplifier. And one of the life interactions is more advanced and knowledgeable than the other. So it's almost like a higher being talking to a human being here. The visuals I had was like a kaleidoscope, a geometric pattern of frequencies. I tried to draw it there, and it was mandala-like, and it had the colours of pink, blue, white, and this was moving, a bit like when you got a kaleidoscope to your eye kind of thing. It had that kind of feeling about it. I tried to sketch this whole thing, what I was seeing. So here's a non-human life, which was living in an environment-enhanced kind of situation, and he was kind of had this kind of connection to this human life here. I guess this is like a telepathic kind of psychic connection. If you look at it in cross section, I had these swirling tubes or channels of energy. Very interesting, yeah. So it felt like these were fibers or neural pathways or quantum information, energy, frequency being transferred from one to the other here. It's a two-way kind of communication kind of network, and that was what I saw was happening. And this was communicating over time and space. So what makes the interaction possible here? I asked as a question, and I had technology, and I felt like this was small, white, self-powered by heat, and it felt like this might be an entangled kind of implant in some way. So it feels like it's entangled, which allows instant communication, and it's for tracking comms, influence, and monitoring. And it felt like this might also be a medical thing. So I feel like there might be some kind of weird implant or some kind of technology involved here that we don't yet understand. The energy itself I was seeing here was everywhere. It had a wide dispersal. It was powerful and esoteric. It felt like it was alive, almost like a consciousness of sorts. And this could be manipulated, controlled, and funneled by the higher being. So this feels like an advanced technology, feels physical, but I'm also seeing non-physical energy, or at least we can't see it easily ourselves as human beings, and this may be dimensional energy. There's an advanced technology. It's almost like a two-way communication or comms. It also can be a one-way comms. The life forms use it for medical monitoring, almost like a GPS mobile phone kind of device that can be tracking. And it also can have a subtle influence, which I felt like it was almost like nudging an individual. Felt like, yes, so the non-physical beings can do this to the human beings. So this felt very one-way beneficial. Feels like there's almost like a teacher to student relationship, but more than this. It's more like they have more influence and control than just being a teacher. It could be used badly, but I'm not sure that this technology is. And I asked what the intent was behind them doing this. And it felt very mixed, non-emotional, almost like scientific and educational. Very experimental as well and detached. But they also had a little bit of caringness to them. I tried to describe what was going on, but it felt like work, like we are a work in progress that they see as a project and they're helping us develop. I tried to ask why here, and I just had the word expansion. And there's definitely a feel of non-human, but also semi-physical, more like a non-physical being here that's doing this. They feel small, thin, old and ancient. I feel like they're travelers, almost like seafaring kind of travelers or spacefaring. I had the word then interloper, and I had the AOL here of Doma, because that's something that I've come across in the past with beings that may be interacting on the moon. So that's it for my RV session on this. Essentially a non-physical being, very advanced technology, very esoteric, using what looked like quantum technology in some way to interact with humans, sharing information in a symbiotic way. I hope you enjoyed the session. That's all from me on this one. Take care.